Hello, it is the second game against the same national master from USA. The games have been playing simultaneously. I have black again, he has white. Let's watch. At this game my opponent has decided to vary and play d4. He played e4 in the first game and d4 in the second one. Knight f6, bishop g5. It is Trompovsky attack. This is opening as part of my opening repertoire. Instead of c5, I play d5, also possible move, but in my opinion c5 is more asymmetric and principled objection, and there is toxic h6 move, whose aim is to check white's intention, whether he is going to trade or switch to London system. After h6 and bishop's retreat, it would be good to play c5, but it is already another topic of conversation and I'm not going to discuss it now. e3, c5. Certainly it is a planned move when you play against Trompovsky attack. It's slightly similar to the Terre attack. Knight d2, e6, c3. White is reinforcing the center. Knight c6. Development of the piece and influences the center. Two central pawns are taken under control by knight. Bishop d3. It is also development of the piece and influences the center as well. Bishop is ready to meet black's king in case of kingside castling, but not in this game. Certainly this factor was taken into consideration by me. And as you can see, the same strategy has been applied in this game. This strategy that was used in the previously reviewed game against the same opponent. I remind you that games have been playing at the same time. Knight has came to d2, and I play c takes d4. To emphasize his unsuccessful placing. But it is unsuccessful just for a moment. For example, knight g1 goes to f3, then to e5. The second knight goes to f3, and then knights will be placed good. It is also important to play c takes d4, because white is going to play e4. It is a planned move. And after cd, white is not going to play cd in reply, because capturing the c file is favorable for black, and white wouldn't like black to capture it. So if he plays e takes d4, his e pawn leaves the e file. It means that it will become impossible to push pawn to e4. After ed, white has a half-open e file, which can be used to exert pressure on this file. h6. To see what the bishop on g5 wants, whether to save the pin or retreat. Bishop retreats to h4, saving the pin. It is a good choice, and I would play the same. Bishop d7. Clumsy move, but quite possible one. There was another useful move, bishop e7, to remove the pin. Knight g3, bishop e7. According to the chess program, it was stronger to push the bishop off the h4 square by g5, but I didn't want to weaken my position ahead of time. But really it would have been worse to play g5, then knight to h5, to trade the knight for the bishop, and probably push pawns on king's side if he had castled king's side. But if he had castled queen's side, maybe I would have played on the c file, move the bishop to g7, and prepare a pawn promotion at some time. Castle. Rook c8. The rook is played on the half-open file. As you can see, it is Carlsbad pawn structure here. Consequently, I can play according to known plans for Carlsbad pawn structure. They are all well known and described, for example, in Wikipedia. Area of possible plans for such structure is known by many players, and this master knows it for certain. Rook e1, knight h5. I offer him to trade. In my opinion, white is forced to trade. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, knight e5. White's knight has jumped to almost all posts. It is annoying, but it is to be expected. A knight on e5 is like a wasp nest on a roof. It is dangerous to knock it down, but nobody wants to have it. In this position, I considered exchange, knight takes e5, or postpone this exchange and do something with opponent's bishop on d3 by playing knight f4. and then decide what to do with wasp nest. In case of knight f4, my knight can be firmly placed on g6 after I retreat there, or reinforce my knight by g6. For reasons of activity, I chose the exchange. Knight takes e5. Every of the mentioned possibilities is approximately equal. This became clear after the completion of the game and computer analysis. National Master kept e-file half open and chose rook takes e5. To put a major piece in the center is risky if it can be attacked. To venture upon such a move is necessary to calculate all variations and be convinced that such risk is worth taking. Now the knight on h5 is hanging. There are two good squares for the knight. First is f4, then move my knight to g6, and second is f6. It's necessary to answer a question. If I choose first variation, will the knight have a good future there? After I had calculated variations, I didn't find anything bad for me, as well as anything good. So I brought my knight back to f6, for reasons of safety. It is a bit weaker, but this difference is almost invisible to the human eye. Queen e2. Opponent's pieces are doubled on the e-file. Unpleasant pressure. You can see that I have my queen and king on this file, and white can exert pressure against d5 in the future, so need to remove my mentioned pieces from the dangerous e-file. I thought that it was better to start with my king, so I chose kingside castling. It wasn't clear where my queen would have been placed better, so I postponed a decision in hope that the future would make things clear. Castle. It helps to develop the rook and put my king into safety. Rook e1. Tripling on the e-file. It is unpleasant, very unpleasant, and black is behind with counterattack on the c-file, according to the typical plans for Carlsbad pawn structure. I had a feeling that I had to move something on the queen side. After I finished this game, I watched in computer analysis, and it turned out that there was a move b5, which would completely remove all difficulties of black. Position would have become equal after b5. My inner voice was right, but I understood wrong what my voice whispered to me, and I made the weaker move and pushed another pawn. It is a good lesson. When you get clear signal from your inner voice, don't rush into choosing. Be sure that you understand the signal right, and only after it proceed to action. In case of b5, b5 pawn would have been inviolated and c4 square would be under control. There is a variant. b5, bishop takes b5, bishop takes b5, queen takes b5, rook b8, queen a5, rook takes b2. Rook invades into the enemy camp, and then I can double my rooks on the b file, rook fb8. Black's position would be good, but I failed to counterattack on the c file and to capture the center, so I played a5. If I'm lucky, I will play a4, a3, or my pawn will get b4 square by some miracle. f4. White plans to determine my e6 pawn by a5. I haven't found useful moves, so I am continuing what I have started. a4, a3, white blocks my pawn. Queen d8, my queen left the dangerous file. h3, taking away the g4 square from my knight. This move prepares pawn storm g2 to g4 as well. White's king is in relative safety. When there are open files and diagonals, the safety of white's king will need to be reviewed. He could play g4 at once, without preparation. g6, the hedgehog motive. I put my pawns on 6th rank to implement the strategy which is called locked pawn chains, or trade pieces in convenient way when white starts to storm the king side by pawns. Knight e3, development. One more piece hand joined into fours. I thought that white intended to remove the rook from e5 to free the square for his knight, and when his knight get there, it would become more difficult to resist. After getting rid of a wasp nest, wasps are targeted the same place again. In this position, there was a good opportunity for my knight to pass on opponent's side, knight to e4, after the preparatory move, bishop to c6. The chess meaning of this operation is to try to catch his rook. It's hardly possible to catch it, but opponent has to take this threat into consideration and play cautiously. I have decided to free diagonal d8 h4 for my queen. I'm going to place my knight on d6. Then it can jump not only to e4, but to reinforced f5 square or to c4. So I played knight to e8, g4, knight to d6, king g2. I thought that there was no need for this move, and indeed the chess program showed that white missed most of his advantage. At this position, after king g2, I was trying to understand whether I had a time for preparation for knight to c4, or it was necessary to venture on this move at once. I considered my position was unsafe and no time to delay, so I played knight to c4. White doesn't want to tolerate such a knight. The knight has attacked the rook on e5 and rook has no space to go. White is forced to trade his bishop to my knight. After the exchange, position is equal. You can see that my bishop can join into game if I move it to c6. Withdrawal of my bishop is favorable because bishop will be placed on h1a8 diagonal. On this diagonal there are white knight and king. It can be a pin, then I will have opportunity to trade my bishop to his more stronger knight. Another idea is to move bishop through c6 to d5 to block white's central pawn. And I don't want to have one more wasp nest on e5. Knight to d2 is a weak move. White misses the advantage. Instead of this move, he had to play king to g3 to not let my queen come out to h4. Another opportunity is to play h4 right away and then reinforce this pawn. I don't tip my hand that I'm going to play bishop to c6 and decided to make useful and waiting move b5 to see what a continuation my opponent will choose. If he plays knight to e4, then I'm planning to pin his knight and trade it off. After the completion of the game, I watched the computer analysis, and it turned out that it was necessary to play bishop to c6 to move it to d5 instead of b5. Earlier I mentioned this idea to place my bishop to the blockading square at d5, rook e3, queen to h4. There is no any obvious threat here. I move my queen closer to opponent's king in order to make my opponent act with caution when he's going to attack me, because his king is uncovered. I need to know that bishop to c6 is more correct than queen to h4. I will not dwell on this move because its idea has already been explained above. Knight to e4. I'm pinning the knight, bishop to c6, with the intention of exchanging my bishop for his knight. According to the chess program, instead of it, f5 is more accurate. Then I would have opportunity to force a draw by perpetual check. Pay attention to the board. f5, knight to c5, bishop c6 check, king to h2, fg, rook g3, rook takes f4, queen takes e6 check, king to h7, knight to e4, rook e8, queen takes e6, rook e takes e4, rook takes e4, rook f2 check, king to h1, rook f1 check, king to g2, rook g1 check, king takes g1, and queen takes g3 check. White's king cannot avoid the perpetual pursuit, but so far I cannot calculate such long beautiful variations. So my opponent play king to h2, moving out of the pin. Bishop takes e4. This move is a significant inaccuracy, which is probably caused by fear of wasps. The most accurate move was still f5. There were approximately equal opportunities, but I will not dwell on them so as not to be distracted by a variety of possibilities and not to make you tired. Rook takes e4. There was the question, did I have opportunity to disturb opponent's king or I didn't? The answer to this question affected my queen, whether it stays on h4 or retreat. I was choosing between king to g7, king to h7, king to h8, rook f e8, rook f d8, rook c d8, rook c e8, and rook c6, and queen f6. But it turned out that any of these moves is stronger than the move that was made in the game. But in general, the position after the move rook takes e4 deserves a separate consideration because almost every possible continuation has own significance. And my reasoning about choosing the move can be useful for chess players. So black was scared and decided to move queen to f6. It's such a hedgehog concept, stop and wait. So there were good moves as well, for example rook to c6, the reinforced e6 pawn, king to g3. White immediately closed the back away from my queen. Now if I want my queen to come back to h4, I will not able to do it. Rook f d8, in order that my opponent couldn't play d5. Rook e5, blocking my e6 pawn and attacking b5. It is a bet to give it away, so I play rook to d5. I thought that in case of the exchange I could maintain my position. The rook endgame would be probably not the easiest one. I have to defend, but it is known that in rook endgames a player has to defend actively, and this game I would have to defend myself for a long time. It's correct here to trade pieces, to transit the exact rook endgame. White had to trade, at least because it's active, and after the exchange his queen could invade the 7th rank and force my queen to trade, and then white would have a winning endgame with an extra pawn. Rook c d8. Now position is really drawn. Black has totally reinforced his position, allowing no inversion. Rook t2, king g7, rook e1, king g8, rook e2, king g7, rook e1, king g8. Threefold repetition. White lost his advantage. Why did it happen? Because my opponent had a hopeless position in another game I played against him, and in current game he probably didn't hope for the best, because he was overplayed strategically in the last game, and he has made dogged defense in this one. Conclusion. I missed good opportunity to play to win and to have any possibility of the counter-attack by b5 instead of a5. Keeping my head down, I didn't hope for anything better than a draw. This is a psychological mistake. Nevertheless, the game ended in a draw. It also makes me happy. Black managed to maintain his position, but sure not without help of white, because opponent decided to finish the game by repeating moves instead of making a winning move. My advice to you, when you have difficult situation, you have to fight. Find opportunity. We almost always have opportunities. Guys, keep your head up. See you.